Here's a car which needs no introduction. Vapid's 100 kiloton nostalgia bomb is as stereotypical to American culture as cheeseburgers and expensive pharmaceuticals. Like the name implies, the definitive pony car dominated popular culture and adolescent bank accounts since the mid-1960s. It was also a comfortable middle ground between affordability and performance, which means getting your hands on a Dominator is as easy for you as it is for it to get its treads on sidewalk bystanders. If you've wanted one for the looks, beg your parents for a 4-cylinder and change the badges. When the guys at the lot ask you to pop open the hood, berate them in their car instead. Everyone knows a strategic offense is the best defense. Start work at 5 AM and have some money to blow? Why not add the extra 4 cylinders and become the cold start rapscallion of suburbia? Your neighbors will admire your courteous wake-up calls. If daily commutes between the diner and the driving range don't scream retiree loud enough, bag yourself a convertible GT. That way everyone can see what their life would have looked like if only they had bought a home instead of waiting to be conceived. As Prometheus gave man fire, Vapid gave man the keys to more horsepower and blatant overconfidence. So naturally, there's a Dominator for everyone. For better or worse, this is the flagship American car, and it's the last slice of the American dream money can still reasonably buy. And here's how it happened. The 60s had no shortage of cult classics in its 10 years of war and love. American cars were roided up like factory cattle, tensions between Italian exotics got spicy, the United Kingdom was a pop culture machine, and of course, the Germans got in with the counterculture beatniks, beach bums, and hippies. Trends like drinking raw lake water, jelking, or wearing overalls all came and went. Yet the 60s American twist on European roadsters was here to stay. Granted, it was never going to reinvent the wheel when it came to performance, or even looks. Hell, it wasn't even the first pony car. Nevertheless, the Dominator effortlessly captured that essence of American space-age optimism. The fact that this new Dominator shared its underpinnings with Vapid's low-shelf economy car didn't bother a soul. Nor did it matter that the car's back seats made a sardine can look roomy. Vapid's Golden Goose sold faster than its underpaid workers could make them, initiating an arms race amongst the other contenders in the mini-muscle craze. The Dominator performs just as well as you'd expect. The first iteration of the 7.4 liter wasn't going to break any land speed records, but it did provide excitement. Steering was passable for its day, terrible for ours, while suspension wasn't exactly comfortable either. Any sort of chase through the hilly San Fierro streets was bound to shatter a pelvis or two. As for styling, compared to its prototype precursors, the production Dominator was practically contemporary. Its low production cost ensured the car would remain grounded in that 60s boxy motif, with some subtle curves in the bodywork. Nearly all Dominators would share the fundamentals of the original. Multi-striped taillights, the superior slick-back roof, a wide front grille, and that signature pony car silhouette. But even the top package wasn't enough for those professional racers and chicken farmers out there. A striped premonition and tinkering to the gears and front suspension was all it took to transform the mule into a racehorse. To separate these rare examples from the herd, Vapid referred to them as Ellies. There weren't any badges either, so the only way to tell an Ellie from a clone was by checking things like the rear exhaust and if it had a gas cap or not. But just in time for the Summer of Love, Vapid gave its money printer another refresh. Meet the Dominator GTT. No one knows officially what the extra T stood for, but if we were to guess, it might be testosterone. The new look made this slab of American muscle wider, longer, and girthier than ever before. Somehow, the new Dominator got away with being bulky and sharp at the same time. The GTT is like a divorced dad when a semi-attractive woman comes into view. The beer gut retracts and the biting commentary on today's society dissipates. This was an automotive swan song for a decade laced in hallucinogenics, rock music, and violent coups. The GTT had it all. Bright colors, vinyl stripes, hood bulges, pillar vents, spoilers, and louvers. The rear tires were even staggered to be aggressively larger than the fronts. The side profile sharpened up the accent crease from the headlights to the rear quarter. The GTT's taillights were also rearranged vertically, sparking a pointless debate between enthusiasts for decades to come. The trunk lip was also trimmed back a notch, to supposedly make washing and maintaining things easier. This machine proves you can buy the affection of others. Nobody cares if you're a base, executive, or barely legal street machine. For once, it didn't really matter what kind of package you had. Everyone just wanted to see it. Although the interior wasn't nearly as impressive as the rest of the car. The cluster, doors, and console were all clad in your typical fake wood grain. This time around, Vapid's signature 450 block meant business. The mad scientists were able to squeeze even more power out of it. This meant your 0 to 60 time was about 7 seconds, drastically reducing your 60 to 0 time as well. If you knew the right person at the Vapid dealership, you could even order your Dominator with a detuned hot ring engine. While the extra weight may seem noticeable in the turns, the GTT is a dramatic improvement in performance all around. And thanks to the government nanny state, we'll never know how well it could have been. Something about kids getting Dane Bramage. Sissies. Ultimately, the GT was a buffer for a bleaker future. The space race had concluded with the motionless flag atop the moon. The IAA was hard at work assassinating politicians and civil activists, while the same wars raged on without an end in sight. Not even the Dominator was safe from the malaise glazing of depression that was the 1970s. Just like Grandad, the next generation of Dominator was of its time. Except instead of rapid-firing ethnic minority hot takes, it turned record sales amidst fuel rationing and smog regulation. However, in the late 70s, Vapid realized its atrophied Dominator had long overstayed its welcome. The nameplate was in dire need of a refresh, lest it die with disco. To do this, Vapid needed the next generation to look and feel nothing like its predecessor. While Vapid of America was producing inefficient land barges and petrol bombs on wheels, Vapid's other continental conglomerates spent the 70s making the most out of their family cars. Utilitarian vehicles that did just as well on rally stages and mountain tracks as they did hauling the groceries. The Americans saw the retinue's success specifically and wanted that for themselves. They forced a bunch of designers from each country into a room and told them to play nice to see what happened. After all, the Brits seemed to be doing the exact same thing. The result was a car so far removed from being a Dominator it simply couldn't be called a Dominator. Meet the Vapid Uranus, or Uranus if you're sensitive about Uranus. Stylistically, the 80s had come a year early. The next generation of Dominator squared up, ditching its circular headlights and bulbous curves. There were protests about the Uranus's Euro aesthetic, but it was a spiritual return for the Dominator. A much more potent V8 brought those horsepower numbers back into the triple digits. The styling was flashy but not over the top, and it had plenty of potential for tuning. The Uranus even had a brief career mowing down bystanders in World Rally Championships. We even got a sweet whale-tail spoiler out of it. Given the era, the interior is everything you'd expect from a car like this. And while the Uranus's performance would never usurp the Dominator's golden years, it was a step in the right direction, ushering in a new era of fuel injection and marginally safer crash ratings. By the late 80s, people were once again waiting for a true-to-form Dominator, and growing tired of Uranus jokes. After narrowly avoiding a mildly misspelled and inflammatory letter from every American middle-aged dad in the country, Vapid decided to not make the next iteration of the Dominator a 4-cylinder anus. Instead, they decided on a design that looked closer to a Dominator than any other model had in the last 20 years. Which isn't saying much, but it was more than what the competition could say. That being said, Vapid couldn't have come up with a more contemporary bland interior if they tried. But the secondary cluster is nice. It wasn't until the turn of the century when things got interesting. The ASP changed the Dominator from mild to wild. The 450 block was back and supercharged. The exhausts were side-piped because something rear suspension, but mostly because it was cool. A rear wing the size of a church pew was added for downforce, and the aggressive aero styling reminded us which pony car ruled the 2000s. Rumor has it Vapid invented the color red just for the ASP, because none of the existing colors looked quite right. The ASP could even handle slight bends in the road. Granted, it did so with the grace of a senior on a mobility scooter, but it did it. Its speed was unmatched for its time too. But as we all know, the market grew hungry for yet another Dominator. And this was the big one. In fact, one could argue the Dominator of the mid-2000s was just as important as the very first. It was more than just an homage to the Dominators of old. It was a slightly fatter reflection. It had all the requirements, a recessed grille complete with notches and round headlights, a slick-back roof, tail lip, and barred taillights. This was the near-perfect emulation of the muscle car's original charm. Right down to the crank handle windows and steering wheel which was just waiting for the perfect moment to shish kebab its driver's ribcage. Vapid made sure the interior felt as authentic as possible. Every auto article gushed about Vapid's bout into retrofuturism ad nauseum, as though it were the first of its kind, ignoring the limited success of the peyote and the bullet in the years just before. The Retro Dominator gave Vapid its 20-plus year template to follow without guessing market trends, because they became the market trend. Vapid even allowed a limited run of race-ready Dominators to those willing to shell out the cash, but it could be also recognized from the televised demolition derbies. You could find them from time to time in the scrapyards, with the previous owner still stained in the upholstery. Rest assured that the V8 of this car is more than capable of going from zero into the car across the street. By the mid-2010s, Vapid already sensed growing market competition between the Dominator and its revival rivals. To keep up with the Gauntlet and Vigero's recent facelifts, the Dominator was redesigned once more. Only this time it was a bit more polarizing. This is the Dominator GTX, or the GT Experimental, internally referred to as the Dominatrix. The updated look was a step away from the retro style that people loved. The design was so aggressive that simply driving the thing gave you unresolved anger issues. The recessed grille now wrapped around the front quarters, and the headlights were replaced with far more modern ones. The iconic taillights were also redesigned for the sake of modernity, spawning a new faction of internet warriors in the endless forum fights about Dominator taillights. The GTX came with an optional aero spec, which was referred to as the Direct Induction Competition Kit in the dealership pamphlets. Getting the competition kit gave you two massive functioning vents on the hood and a rear spoiler to help you with those scary turns. Plenty of time had been spent updating the GTX's interior too. Airbags, cup holders, infotainment, yada yada. Basically everything a modern performance car is expected to have. Except it's also one of the most cursed interiors I've seen in a while. There's an automatic shifter, a clutch pedal, flappy pedals, auto hold, and a rotary dial for a radio, which doesn't need one. To top it all off, next to your push start is an option for rear-wheel drive and four-wheel and low gear. Unless Vapid intended this car to tow, it must have been ripped right out of the Cara. As far as performance goes, the GTX wasn't that much of an improvement over its predecessor. The extra weight slowed the GTX down in straight-line speed, while cornering and acceleration were threatened by the slightest pothole in the road. I'm not sure what Vapid did to the transmission, but it's an absolute slush box. Finding the next gear feels like waiting in a DMV queue, yet it still finds the perfect speed to incapacitate bystanders. Needless to say, the GTX set the bar a couple inches underground, gambling too much on looks and untested tech. But now it seems they've attempted to right the ship once more. This is the Dominator GT. No extra letters, revisionist designs, or performance plagues here. At a glance, one can easily identify the unmistakable Dominator's spirit, but a closer inspection reveals a whole new beast. The GT isn't archaically chunky, nor is it unrecognizably smooth. To do this, the GTX's aggression was dialed back and the bodywork was streamlined, just enough so people could now stop at every other gas station on their commute. All the other options were there: hood intakes, spoilers, side vents, and stripes. All ways to turn your Dominator into a neon sign begging for a traffic stop. Yet the inside isn't a whole lot different from the GTX's. But they did clean up the wheel and remove the lettering from the push start, so hats off to Vapid. Time will tell just how well this GT fits into the pony car hierarchy, but the odds are looking favorable. Ultimately, the Dominator has long stood as a definitive pony car, and perhaps with a little arguing, even the definitive American muscle car. It's also a reminder that time is a flat circle. The Dominator stood long before the Vigero and the Gauntlet, and will continue to do so without them. Undoubtedly, another generation will succeed the GT, but be sure to hold on to these ones while you can, because no one ever knows they're in the good times until they aren't.